Now, it's do we have Nelson? Who do we have, Albert? We have Nelson and Alex both?
Yeah, I think
Wow,
we have
that we
a
do.
little 2-for-1, Mark. Two for
I
one.
love this. Okay, they wrote this book together. Alex DeMille and his son wrote this together. It's called Bloodlines. It's a new thriller. I think this is the second one in the series, though. We'll ask him about that. It's about espionage and terrorism and politics, and starts with a murder, and they think it's kind of a Islamic terrorism, and then it's actually a whole investigation unfolds and something else. How about it for the DeMilles, everybody? Yeah, look at you two,
I'm
Nelson and Alex.
Good to see you.
So Alex is the younger DeMille, correct?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, you're both. It's look very close in age, but yes, okay. So, and am I right? This is your second book.
That's right. Our first collaboration was The Deserter, came out in 2019, and this is the follow-up of the same characters.
Right, the lead character throughout, a couple of lead characters. So, what's it like, first of all, to write with your dad?
It's an education. I'd never written. I've come from film screenwriting, film editing, so it was a different. Not only new to work with him, but new to write a book in the first place. So, but I grew up with it. Had some sense of what went into it. I didn't really understand how hard it was going to be, but it was great. It gives us like an extra reason to talk and spend time together. So it's nice.
Nelson, do you write drafts and then push them to Alex, or how does it? What was your method and rhythm of writing?
Yeah, we came up with an MO fairly quickly, which was Alex was going to do the heavy lifting, and he's going to do the research and write the first draft and send it to me. And it worked. He is a screenwriter. He knew how to structure a story. He knew, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And this dialogue was good because he's a screenwriter. So I said, I'm going to take it easy on this. And I let him do first draft. And I became like the editor. And so I did some rewrites. By this book, second book, Bloodlines, he really got it down. He really made a good transition between screenwriter and novelist, which is not that easy.
And, it's funny because you're continuing characters and you have a story here that you have to agree on, right? You have to agree on plot points. You have to agree on what characters you're doing. Is that done by Alex? And do you push back on it, Nelson? Or do you but you come from the world of storyboarding, Alex? Do you, how do you do it?
Well, yeah, with screenwriting, you kind of have to do a lot of pre-planning. A lot of people doing index cards or digital index cards of this scene, that scene. My father has been a lifelong been anti-outline, and I always hated doing it anyway. So it was nice to not do that this time. But what I did was for this book, Bloodlines, I came up with an idea, which was I wanted to do a murder mystery set in Berlin involving the U.S. Army, because our characters are U.S. Army CID agents. And I just had a lot of different elements, like ingredients in this book I wanted to fit into it. So I wrote a proposal. Dad, you edited the proposal. So we definitely had shared a vision of the big picture, and then shared. They gave that to the publisher. They said go ahead, and then a lot of the more granular stuff I kind of decided on my own, and then he'd either think it was a good idea or think it was a bad idea, and we kind of go as we went.
Yeah. And this is, I should say, to make this book a little more relevant to what's happening, Alex did a lot of research on, Arab terrorist groups, Islamic terrorist groups, and there's a lot of that in the book because the book is set in Germany, set specifically in Berlin, in a neighborhood that's mostly populated by refugees from the Mideast, and this is where the murder of an American CID agent takes place. So the suspicion right away falls on the Arab and Muslim community. And that's a large part of the book. And I learned a lot because he did the research, and I learned a lot about the different groups within these movements and, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the whole thing. So
yeah, I was going to ask you about the research because you had referenced it before. So is that primarily where your research was? I would think that you'd have to do some research on military stuff and, because you do deal with military investigators and, special ops kind of people. What was your research mostly concerned with?
Well, my father It was in the army and in Vietnam. So some of that was, I would write stuff knowing that I had a bit of a safety net if I'm just making something up about the army. And he would step in if something kind of felt wrong or sounded wrong. Then obviously having to do some research about how things have changed and how the modern army works. But honestly, part of the interesting thing is I asked myself, what kind of power would an army CID agent have in Berlin for this kind of murder? And the answer was almost none. So that was an immediate kind of point of tension that we have our characters butt up against. And that's a lot of the kind of drama in the story comes into them basically breaking every rule as they come across it. So that was kind of fun. But then the other thing was, what are all the different communities in this part of Berlin? What is the German security services suspicions about mosques and community centers, who's funding what are the different agendas? And it was interesting. I talked to a couple of reporters who live in Berlin still, and we both been about 4 times, so we had a general idea of the cityscape.
The reviews on the book very strong, and one of the things that's said is like the last part of the book, the last third of the book, just it moves like a bullet train. It's so amazing, and this is a thriller. So I'm wondering if you've clearly your publisher wanted a second book. Are you thinking, about this? Might it be transferable to the screen? You're the big screen guy, Alex DeMille.
Yeah. Well, everything has been on standstill because of the strikes, and obviously the writer's strike's over now. We've there's been rumblings of TV interest. I feel like everybody is talking TV these days instead of feature film.
Like a series. Everything's they serialize everything now.
Limited series. I mean, it's a big book. There's a lot of plot, a lot of there's the main characters. There's lots of I think interesting supporting characters. So I could easily see it kind of being fleshed out to it's like a 8-hour serialized story. Yeah.
And then finally, I have to ask you, the DeMille name occupies a certain level of reverence within the entertainment and film community. Did you? I assume you're not related to Cecil B. DeMille, Nelson DeMille, are you?
Well, sometimes I say yes, but the answer is no. He was actually Dutch. His name is Demo.
Is that right? Wow.
My ancestry is called French.
That is terrific knowledge. I did not know that.
Yeah, he was DEMIL, but it didn't sound good, so he decided to make it DeMille.
Wow, that is terrific knowledge. Alex, I would have played up that DeMille thing big time in Hollywood. Did you ever try that, Alex? I mean,
yeah, definitely. It depended. Like it was just a casual conversation where I can lie and get away with it, or is this like a meeting where they're going to check up on it?
I see. Yeah. The internet really has hurt in many ways that way. William says, Nelson, I really enjoy your books. There you go from our audience, and I'm just looking. The Deserter. Somebody else is saying. Lori says The Deserter. She is in the process of listening on Audible. So. Okay. And this is Bloodlines is also on Audible, correct?
Yes, Scott Brick is the narrator. He's been narrating most of my books the last 20 years. He's an actor in L.A. I should mention too, more. We're on the road right now. We're on a publicity tour. We're both New York. Alex is Brooklyn. I'm Long Island. But we are right now in Vero Beach in the middle of a publicity tour. And today we're waiting for a word from our publisher to see where Bloodlines has landed on the New York Times bestseller list. This is the day they will tell us. And we're hoping for number 1, which is not too unreasonable. Our last book, The Deserter, actually debuted at number 3, which is not bad for a co-authored book with a new series and new characters. So we're pushing for number 1 today, and we want everybody out there to send good comment,
and buy the book. But we'll await that word as well. Hey, Nelson, last thing, with your background as a Vietnam vet, and how did you segue out of that world? I mean, I always associated with that with such a crucible of emotion and issues and conflicts. I mean, I'm talking about emotional conflicts. How did you segue out of that into this rich world of writing?
I think a lot of men, maybe educated men, come back from war, especially if you've been in combat, and you have a story you want to tell. And that's really what compelled me into writing. I was a great reader in high school and college. And I read Norman Mailer and James Jones. I read all the great World War II literature, and even Hemingway, World War One. And I said, I thought in the back of my mind, this is. But then when I actually, got out of college and I went to the army and I did, experience combat, I came back with, the story I wanted to tell, the Great American War novel. I think every educated soldier wants to write that one. And that's what got me into the writing process. I knew people in the business. Living in New York, you know people in the publishing business. And I reached out to some people and some veterans who were, I think, also coming back about the same time I was from their service. And that's how I became a writer. I think without Vietnam, I would not have become a writer.
Wow, is that right? That's extraordinary. That gave you the story to tell that you felt compelled to tell. What is it, Kim?
I wondered, you had so many New York Times list bestsellers, and I was fascinated by something Alex said, which is that you're not a fan of the outline. Does that mean that when you sit down to write a book, you have no idea where the story's going to lead you? You just kind of go on a path? Or have you kind of planned out in your mind, the conflict, the resolution, the end? Do you know where you're headed, or are you on a journey?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'll let my son take that.
I mean, I think I would assume in my father's case, it might depend on the book, but for Bloodlines, it's a murder mystery. The who, of course, but also the why is the big question hanging over it. So starting the book, I knew the why. I think I had to, or else what we pitched to the publisher wouldn't have had enough substance to say, well, this is what it's really about. So yeah, I had point A and I had point Z. And that was honestly kind of it. And then for me, I was lucky, or whatever, however my brain works, whenever I was writing, I felt like in my head, I'm 3 chapters ahead, but never more than that, which is good because you don't end up running into a wall, but you're also kind of on the journey too, when you're allowing yourself to have these, have these thoughts that can kind of send the story in one direction or another. So I mean, outlining, it works for some people. It just, for me, it can feel kind of stifling because the way you think while you're writing versus the way you think when you're trying to do this bird's eye thing, it's just 2 different processes.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on getting it done. It's really, really cool to see you guys work together and collab on this thing that looks like it's going to be really something significant. Bloodlines is out. Pick it up. You can pick up the audiobook or the script for the audiobook, as I like to put it. It's the actual book. Nelson, so great to meet you. And Alex, you too. Congratulations. And I look forward to seeing your name, if not toward the top of the New York Times bestseller list. Good luck with Bloodlines, man. Come back and visit. See you guys. Yeah. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.